Hi, it's Dr. Michael McNeil here. Here I am in a Sunday night in a wonderful Travelodge hotel. Just be glad you're not in one. so, but the reason why I wanted to do this video, it's been bothering me for quite a while actually. This last week, either last week or the week before, I think France announced that if Israel does not have a ceasefire or end the war in Gaza, then they're going to recognise a Palestinian state. And Canada has just last week, I think, as well said the same thing. And our Prime Minister, as a British person, has just said they're going to do the same thing as well. And the consequences of this for us as Western nations would be catastrophic. And you think, well, how are you getting to that sort of place? I'm approaching this as a Christian, as a believer, as a Bible believer. So some people just reject my thesis out of hand. But if you, I challenge anybody to do a study in the scriptures. Just sort of do a search. You can do a digital search, online search, whatever, and just search for the words "my land," and you'll find that the land of Israel and that area of the world, God refers to as His, specifically in a special way. Now, the earth and the Lord and everything is bigger. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, and the fullness thereof. Everything belongs to the Lord, but He makes a specific, a special category applies to that nation, that land, which He gives to the children of Israel, and regardless of the nature of, if you like, the secular government of Israel, and some of the questionable decisions they've made, or policies with regards to downgrading Arabic as an official language, all these so-called sort of and they are genuine, these genuine issues that refer to the internal politics of Israel. That's none of our business. God will take care of that part of it. But if anything is our business, it's to ensure that the nation of Israel has the ability to defend itself. I had a very powerful discussion I can remember with, it was actually one of my wife's friends, and he's probably up in his mid-80s or something now, but he was fighting in the Israeli army during the 1960s. He was a colonel in the IDF then. This guy is not, he's a sort of like remarkable guy. He's doing all this humanitarian work in Africa. He's married to somebody's, one of the African nations who happens to be a Muslim, so he hasn't got any sort of enormous prejudice. And if you talk to the guy, you understand it. This is not somebody who's, some sort of far right radical or something. But he just said all we're doing is fighting for our right to exist, and this is regardless of whether just set aside any of sort of like the preconceptions of what's going on in the Middle East. It's the basic issue at hand is the nation of Israel is fighting for its right to exist. And it's been attacked at numerous points in it since its reformation in 1948, both in the day after it declared independence, then you had the 1967 war, and then you had stuff in 1973, then you've had the two intifadas, and then they were attacked very, very brutally, probably the most brutal military attack on any nation, for the ferocity of it, the violence of it, using rape as a weapon of war, utterly brutal, with the principal aim of the brutality of that attack was to was to provoke Israel into such a severe and extreme reaction. They would get all the arrows on the side of Israel. Why has that come to an issue? Because of the Abraham Accords, and the various Arab nations were starting to make peace with Israel and they were going to exclude this radical Islamic element, which was funded by Iran. So there's much that could be said about the sort of like the politics. What all Israel is actually doing is fighting for its right to exist. That's one thing. And our business is to ensure that they can defend themselves. They're not even asking for us to help them defend themselves. They're very, very capable, as can be seen, of being able to defend themselves. Now, the US did come to their aid, in the attack on Iran, because they're the only nation in the world that's got that type of weapon. At least can deliver that type of weapon. So there's stuff that could be said about that. But the issue that's really got me is this announcement of if you don't make this ceasefire, then we're going to recognise a Palestinian state. So you think, well, if you do say a study, like I was saying at the beginning, if you do a study, then you see my land, the Lord, this is His land. Then, if you in Joel 3, where it talks about this as one of this is the scripture. I knew this is what I'm basing this sort of talk on, where it actually says, this is my view, and it says for look, in those days, this is Joel 3 verses 1, 2 and 3, but I would encourage you to read the whole chapter, Joel 3. I think it's supremely relevant at this time. But this is something, I'm just going to read these 3 verses here. It says, for look, in those days and at the time I will return the exiles to Judah and Jerusalem. Okay, so the exiles have returned to Judah and Jerusalem. Yeah. Okay, we're living in those times. Then I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. I will enter in judgment against them there concerning my people Israel, who are my inheritance. So the people of Israel are still the Lord's people, and they're still His inheritance, whom they scattered among the nations. And listen to this bit here. It said, they partition my land, and they cast lots for my people. Okay, then we'll go in there and just skip over a little bit here. Verse 4, it says, are you trying to get even with me, land of Philistia? I will very quickly repay you for what you have done. So this area, if you like, land of Philistia, is the land that's in question now, and it's what all the fight is over. It includes the land of Philistines. It was the Gaza Strip, that section. So I believe, and I would say, read the whole passage. You'll get the flavour. And so, if we are as stupid as enough, if we are as a nation, like I say, France, Canada, UK, and probably there's various other nations who say they will recognise a state, a state of Palestine. So what they're going to do, they're going to partition the land of Israel, because Israel withdrew voluntarily from the Gaza Strip in exchange for peace, but there has been no peace. They forcibly removed settlers from those areas, and it was in exchange land for peace. That was it was land for peace, land for peace, land for peace. And has there been any peace in that area since then? No, there hasn't. And the Palestinian Authority has been an utter failure. It failed to govern that section. Hamas took over that section, and Hamas and Fatah and Hamas hate each other, has been fighting with each other, shooting at each other. Palestinian Authority is a failed state before it's even ever got off the ground. So to actually have the temerity and the audacity to say that we're going to divide the Lord's land, that I personally believe and I have great fear for the integrity of our own nations if that happens. You can do like a systematic study. I think of all the great empires of the world, and when they and what was the trigger for their destruction in the end was the way that they treated the Jewish people. When they were blessed, the Jewish people, their empires prospered, and that goes for the British Empire, that goes all the way back for the time of Cyrus the Great. You can trace this as a principle. When did the US become a powerful great nation? When it's supported, and if you like, we're living in the period of in some ways, 20th century was the American Empire. It became, when the British abandoned the Jewish people, the empire disappeared within 10 years, it just decimated, and Britain as a nation was a shadow of its former self. It's a shadow of its former self now when we're losing our own integrity and our own identity as a nation. We've had mass immigration into this nation that's likely to destroy it unless something is done to arrest it and change it, as radical, as what's happened in the US. So we're much further along that line, and we're in a much more precarious position. We've had millions upon millions upon millions of people, and there's thousands of people coming into our nation every week. So it's a very desperate, dark sort of period for our nation, and I really sense in myself that if we go ahead and we support dividing up and partitioning the land of Israel, that will have terrible effects socially and economically and politically on our own nation. So I know this is sort of like people are very focused because they're saying all the starvation stuff that's going on in Gaza, but they're ignoring that the aid is being bypassed. And just think of this statistic. This is an official UN statistic for UN aid going in to Gaza. That between 85 and 87, I think you can find it on the UN, the official some official website. It's an official statistic, but between 85 and 87% of all aid that is going, UN aid that is going into Gaza, has been intercepted, and it's not getting to there. What they mean by intercepted is that Hamas or its agents are stealing the aid. So it's not Israel that's starving out the people of Gaza. And if anything, Israel has been, the way the IDF has handled itself, the way the IDF has conducted war and stuff, am I saying that absolutely everything they've probably ever done in there has been perfect? No. But it's war, and they are known for as ethically as war can be conducted, they've done it. So, it's utter nonsense to say that Israel has been barbaric or in any way, and Hamas they're getting to the point now where they're within they've only got one stronghold. Israel has completely destroyed them and obliterated them, and as well as Hezbollah in the north, and they've broken up this axis of evil because they were the ones who were attacked, and that's what people seem to forget. They were the ones that were attacked, and they have gone after their enemy after 20-30 years of attempting to appease them in many ways. You could say 40-50 years of appeasement, of attempting to accommodate what the UN want. There's something like, I think it's some ridiculous level of over half of all resolutions that have been in the UN have been with regards to whether it's the nation of Israel and the Palestinian problem. I encourage you, I'll put a reference into a blog that I did. It was like an essay, it's really an essay study of giving a bit of the history of that area and some of the key salient points regarding the history of that area. Because prior to about 1840, 1850, there was hardly anybody in that area. It's not, you had the Jews started, some small zealous Jews started a small community, but there was a tiny population, very, very sparsely populated, area, and some Arabs considered it as a southwest province. That area was traditionally a southwest province of Syria. There's strong linguistic, I think, evidence for that. And but then Jordan had a claim on it. Some of the other nations had a claim on it, and it had always been Jews around the Middle East. There was large Jews communities in Libya, so it's not as if the Jews suddenly, arbitrarily sort of took land away. It wasn't that at all. And understanding the history of the war and what triggered the Nakba, which was the great, the Palestinian people being moved from or having to leave land and stuff, and it's a lot more complicated. It wasn't just Israel sort of driving people out and ethnically cleansing the land. There was the Arab armies had called for the people we now call the Palestinians to move, so that when they attacked Israel, they just knew that there wasn't going to be any Arabs that they could just obliterate. As it happened, it didn't. They suffered an enormous defeat. It was the 7-Day War. And you had this mass movement of people. It's much more complicated. People don't understand what actually triggered the Nakba and the dynamics of what was going on there. And suddenly that the Arab nations kicked out 500,000 Jews who were living in those communities. And so where could they go? They went to the nation of Israel. And so Israel's not this, as it's often accused of, being this imperialist adjunct to the US or something. The US have been, to their credit, have supported them after the British, who were supposed to have the mandate of Palestine, abandoned them, and in fact was working with the Jordanians to undermine them, the Arab League, to actually destroy the nation before it ever got going. So this is about, the nation of Israel surviving. We've got no business partitioning the land. I would say read Joel 3. I really fear for our nation if this goes on, because we've already got a problem with Islam. We've got a serious problem with it, and it's amazing. I heard the statistic, I think last week it was, and it's something like there's only like 29% of the people of London, who's the capital, who are, if you like, white British people, white native people. We've essentially lost our capital. We've got Muslim mayor, we've got Muslim communities who are establishing what they call autonomous zones, which basically means Sharia law. Our, if you like, some people call it suicidal empathy, don't they? Our wanting to accommodate our liberal values, where some people take, radical Islam takes full advantage of that to disenfranchise and to destroy our nation. So we do, if in many ways this is a call to prayer. This is a call, because if this happens and we recognise a Palestinian state and we attempt to partition the land of Israel, I fear for the type of disasters and things that will happen in our own nation. I think it was one of the Bushes, who attempted to force Israel into some sort of peace settlement where land would be removed and people's houses were being destroyed, and there was a severe storm and it completely destroyed one of the president's residences totally. There was this picture of him crying in the wreckage of this house, and one of the preachers I was listening to at the time, he made that observation. He was saying, well, let this be a lesson. If you're going to force the nation of Israel to get into giving its land up such that their houses were destroyed, don't be surprised that your house is destroyed. Okay, so I would encourage you to, if you're a believer, and this is something can be studied out. I'll put the blog stuff in I've done other stuff where I've written about Israel. I'll dig some of that stuff out, because Israel are still the people of the Lord, and there's a time of a great. It says that once all the Gentiles have come in, then it says all Israel will be saved. Paul makes that clear in Romans, and that we're grafted into the tree. We're not independent of the tree. We haven't replaced the tree. We've replaced Israel in the sense that the gospel has gone out through the world, through the church. I think that's self-evident. I don't think people can argue with that. But we haven't replaced Israel in the sense of that Israel are no longer the people of God. Israel are the people of God. And replacement theology that it's called, that tries to assert that all the promises of Israel are fulfilled in the church. There's a basic error there, I think. All the promises made to Israel are fulfilled in the church, but only because we're grafted into the vine. And the argument of Paul in Romans is very clear, that Israel are still the people of God, and God will restore the whole of Israel once the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. So there's lots more that could be said on this, but I just wanted to make that sort of very brief focused point that this is a real pivotal event. We do not need to be involved in this, and we certainly do not need to support it, and we need to try and make our voices heard in whatever way we can, whether that's contacting our MPs or whatever it is. If there's going to be some sort of response to this, I will have to dig around and have a look myself, but I encourage you, make your voice heard on this, because we need to support the nation of Israel for the sake of the integrity of our own nation. Okay, thank you. God bless you. Goodbye.